Welcome to another all booked discussion. It's April, so for many of us, that means that we are getting ready for some spring cleaning. If you are anticipating some spring cleaning, make sure you check out an article that we just published about book donations. It has lots of resources for where and how you might go about donating books. And as you're looking at the resources, do keep in mind just checking to see if COVID has limited any availability in any of the sources where you can donate books. I know here at our home, we love to have books in all the rooms and keep lots of books on hand. But even at that, it's always nice to pass along books to make them available to others as well. What are other people's plans for book spring cleaning? What are your approaches?
Like about once a year, we set out like a goal to start reading through the books we haven't read in a while, and they're not speaking to us. We put them in a donation pile. I mean, mostly they're great books, but if we haven't read them in a year, it's maybe time to let someone else have a turn.
Yeah, I know we keep a special spot on a bookshelf that we designate for books we're not feeling as much or maybe we're getting tired of. And when we have enough books, then we donate them. But that's a great idea to set aside a time to go through all of them.
We used to have a spot on a shelf for that, and then the boys would just be like, "Oh, we don't want to get rid of this one." Get all mixed back in. So now they're in special bags in the basement, snuck away. And we give away the books they don't actually care about but think they love.
That's really good advice because that happens with ours too. Another thing I like to do when winter goes away is to put away some of our winter books. So sometimes not donating, but we put them away and we get out more of the spring and different seasonal books. So just changing things up that way too.
I love it. Rotation.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need a label on the shelf like these are our favorite books that we're going to keep forever. I think that'll work for the boys. Not trick them.
Your kids can read, so it might.
Well, we're really excited to jump into this April's new releases. Again, lots of exciting books coming out, and so we'll start it off with talking about some of the upcoming board books.
One I'm really excited about is You Are Fantastic by the Hello Lucky team. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I love their illustration style and all the books they've put out so far. So I'm excited about that one.
Nice. I know that On the Farm and Trucker and Train are both originally picture books, but they've been reformatted into board books and are being released this month. I think Trucker and the Train is really fun. They're really cute illustrations and it has a lot of sound effects, which makes reading it aloud a great experience. And if you're interested in learning more about the differences between board and picture books and why some get reformatted like this, I just did an article on the blog talking about the differences between board and picture books. So you can go check that out.
And Becca, do you think these two are better as board books or do you like them better as picture?
I like them better as board books.
Awesome.
I really enjoy when picture books gets reformatted and released as a board book because sometimes board books can be very substance light, and I think when they've reformatted a picture book into a board book, often you end up with a fun story to still enjoy even with a young toddler that you're reading to.
Yeah.
So speaking of picture books, there's also some great picture books coming out. One of them that's coming out is The Rock from the Sky by Jon Klassen. And we got this sample in the mail a couple days ago, and Fitz, the 4-year-old, just thinks it's hilarious. He just laughs out loud. I'm not laughing out loud. I mean, except at him. It's well done, but he just thinks this one is laugh out loud funny. So, and we've probably read it four times so far in the last 2 days. He thinks it's great. It's in chapters, which is kind of fun for a picture book. So, I mean, it's like a picture book, but there's chapters. So he feels really big that he's reading a chapter book.
Cool. That's really fun. I noticed that a book called I Sang You Down from the Stars is coming out this month. I haven't had a chance to read it all the way through, but I've been able to take a look inside a few of the pages, and it's beautiful. It's illustrated by the Caldecott medalist Michaela Goad, and she did the water protectors that Jane's holding up. So that's really great. And the author, as well as Michaela Gold, are two diverse creators, which is a plus.
I saw the cover of that and thought it looked really neat. I'll have to check it out as well. A couple that I'm excited about. One called Flip, How the Frisbee Took Flight. And I generally am a big fan of picture book histories that take an interesting story and make it very compact, and I can get the gist of it in a 10-minute read or so. And if I'm really intrigued, maybe I'll pick up a bigger history or biography about it. But I love how you can learn a lot about different subjects with these picture books that are really well done. There are lots of them available these days. And this one, yeah, it's the history of the Frisbee. And from the preview pages that I've seen, it looks very, very well done. It's illustrated. It's written by Margaret Muirhead and illustrated by Adam Gustafsson. He illustrated another book called The Great Blondin, King of the Tightrope. And that one was one that we really enjoyed. And so I really like his illustration work, and I'm looking forward to checking it out in that. And it also reminds me of a fun one that I read recently called Whoosh, Invention of the Super Soaker, which was another great story along this vein. And then I saw that there's a new release from Jacob Grant, and we have quite a few Jacob Grant titles in our collection, and we've also sent a few of his in our book group boxes even. His books are very witty, usually low volume in text, and this one looks the same. But yeah, lots of cleverness included. And this one, I think it's going to be interesting because it's called No Pants. And usually I'm not a big fan of like books that stoop to fart jokes for laughs, but I don't think that that's the direction he's gone with this. From the previews, it looks like it's really clever story about a boy and a dad, and I'm excited to check it out.
So I actually read this one last night, and it definitely has like a laugh out loud moment, and it's pretty clever. But for me, there was just like a little too much like back talking of the little boy to the dad for me to want to read that too many times with my 4-year-old, plus to get any ideas. I mean, not that he doesn't try it anyway, but it was very clever. But there was definitely some little boy pushing back on his dad about not wearing to wear pants.
Okay, good to know. Yeah.
One other book. Oh, sorry, Tiffany.
You're good.
One other picture book that I read that's coming out this month is called The Pocket Chaotic. And it's about a little baby kangaroo in his mama kangaroo's pouch, baby Joey. And it has a yellow color scheme all throughout. And it's about this baby kangaroo growing up and gaining his independence. And he gets tired of all the clutter in his mom's pouch. And it was a really, it was funny, but not laugh out loud funny, but it was enjoyable and a great one about personal habits and tidiness.
That's pretty cute, pretty clever. His little pocket home. Along the lines of the nonfiction, there's a new one coming out about monarch butterflies, and it's called Butterflies Are Pretty Gross. And so it's just it looks like it's going to be, I haven't read it yet, so I'm looking forward to it, but it looks like it's going to share lots of true facts about butterflies and how beautiful they are, but how there's a lot more to them. And it looks like it might be pretty humorous. So I'm looking forward to reading that one too.
I know you were also excited, Tiffany. Together we were looking at a book. So a year ago, we were living in New York City when the pandemic started, and there's a new book called Keeping the City Going by Brian Floca. And we were looking at that and can't wait to get that in our library. It just is a tribute to essential workers and healthcare workers, and I was stunned by the illustrations. I would almost call them haunting, to be taken back to how the city was, just usually bustling, and instead the streets are empty and people are looking out their windows. And I think he's done a terrific job of capturing that moment and preserving it. And really look forward to having that in our library.
Yeah, as I looked at these illustrations, I just thought, oh my goodness, it illustrates perfectly the feeling of being there in New York City during the pandemic. And it just brought back all of the feelings of being there. And when we, every night at 7 o'clock, the windows would open, you know, at our apartment and everywhere around the city, and people would just start clapping and cheering for these healthcare workers and essential workers. And I feel like this book just really is a great tribute to them. And so I'm excited to read that and to read it with my kids, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it too.
That sounds like a great one.
Yeah.
With all this talk of nonfiction, one of the new chapter books coming out is so in the She Persisted series, it started off as a couple of picture books, and now there's a chapter book series, each highlighting a different famous influential woman. And there's one coming out about Virginia Apgar, who I hadn't realized that the Apgar scale was invented by a woman. So I learned a ton. It was super well written. Illustrations are cute. And it was a pretty quick read, but really easy to get through, really informative, and a really inspiring biography of Virginia Apgar.
That's cool. I didn't know that either. I think that's neat that they started as chapter books, or I mean, as picture books, and are now doing chapter.
It looks like a really cool series. This is the first of the chapter books I've read, but I definitely want to check out more of them now.
Yeah.
And are they all? I was looking at that as well. I think I agree. It looks like a terrific series. And are they all illustrated by Alexandra Boiger?
It looked like there was a companion illustrator on this one.
Okay,
Like
nice.
it was written by, there were 4 collaborators on it. It looked like Chelsea Clinton, Alexandra Boiger, and they were the initial creators of the picture book series. And then this is written by, have to look it up, but by a doctor. And then there was a companion illustrator on it as well. But it looks like it's in Alexandra Boiger's style.
Nice. Yeah, I love her style. And one of the things I was counting, it looks like maybe they're not all out yet, but there are at least 13 different biographies. I don't know how many they have planned for the series, but in looking at them, one of the things that I really liked is that some of them were about women that I recognized, that I think most people would: Harriet Tubman, Helen Keller, Oprah Winfrey. But others, like personally, I hadn't heard of Virginia Apgar before, or the Apgar scale for that matter. And journalist Nellie Bly, that's also a new name to me. And so I think it's neat that they are doing some mainstream women who have had nice biographies done before, and also highlighting maybe some that are not as well known.
The other textbook that I'm really excited about is by Kevin Hankey. Did I just pronounce that right? But it's Billy Miller Makes a Wish. And this is a companion to the Newbery Honor book, The Year of Billy Miller, which I haven't read. But Billy Miller, which is a tongue twister, Makes a Wish was also super well written. It was like a calming, just kind of like everyday occurrences, but with like a little bit of excitement and wrapped up in a fun surprise. I don't want to like spoiler alert this, but this would be also a fun book to get a chapter book reader who's going to have a new baby come to their house. So
Fun.
I noticed that the newest Ivy and Bean chapter book number 12, is coming out this month for all of the fans of that series. It's called Get to Work. So that's exciting.
The one that I looked forward to is called The Gilded Girl. So this is about a little girl and a friend in New York City during the Gilded Age. So this is Alyssa Coleman's debut novel. and anything with gold finishes and magic always catches my eye. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that one.
The cover on that one is super pretty.
Yeah, it is.
The one that intrigued me is called The Great Peach Experiment. It looks like it might be the first in a series called The Great Peach Experiment. This one is When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Peach Pie. And I just thought from the summary that this sounds very intriguing. It's the story of dad and his kids. The mom has passed away, and it's summer vacation is approaching, and these 3 kids in the family all have their own plans. I think one is excited about swimming, taking swimming lessons. Another is looking forward to, I think it's getting into some science experiments. Another has a long list of books that she'd like to read for the summer. And instead, the dad announces that their mom's invention has sold and they've become very wealthy. And to celebrate or in honor of the mom, he's going to fulfill one of her dreams, which was, it sounds like a cross-country family road trip. So he shows up and tells them that instead of these summer plans that they're looking forward to, he's bought a food truck, and they're going to take a family drive across the country in the food truck, where apparently they'll be baking peach pies. The only catch is none of them know how to bake. So I think that it has all the mix-ins for a really fun story.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Now I'm hungry. Well, we probably can't get through all of the new releases we're excited about, because I swear, I mean, we have so many books, but every time I see a new book, I'm like, I want that book. I want to read it. It looks so great. So we've put together a list for you of some of the other upcoming books we're excited about, since we couldn't do them all justice here.
And don't forget that on the with an account on the platform, it's very convenient to keep track of your TBR pile, because like you, Jane, I am always adding more books to it. I'll probably never get through them all, but I just know that I've been able to save them, and I can come back to it and say, oh yeah, what was that book I wanted to read? And find it on my to be read list on the platform.
Yeah, everybody needs one of those.
So speaking of on the platform, we wanted to highlight a couple of lists that would be fun to check out for this month. And to begin, it's a list that we have. We often hear parents asking, what should my kid read after Dogman? And so we just wanted to share a little bit about graphic novels and some of our recommendations. And graphic novels are in a really exciting moment. So for a long time, like comic books and those types of works were relegated to the comic store and to like superhero stories and to a certain like culture of, comic nerd, you might say. They were also sort of snubbed by the literary crowd. And it's just this exciting moment because they've been accepted. I mean, there are more. I was seeing an infographic that said that there are more graphic novel sales, if I remember right, through like traditional book stores now rather than comic book stores. So they've really moved mainstream. And along with that, they're not getting snubbed anymore, which is good. And because tons of kids get interested, and adults for that matter, get interested in reading through this genre. And they're moving into all kinds of great areas and interests and topics well beyond, like, it's not just superheroes anymore. It's all kinds of interesting things and a variety of things. So for the first time ever, I think it was a year ago now, that the Newbery Medal was awarded to a graphic novel, New Kid by Jerry Craft. And he did a follow-up to that this year. He released called Class Act. So if your kid is enjoying graphic novels, and by far Dogman dominates that. I mean, tons of sales of Dogman. But whether your kid likes Dogman and is looking for something else, or whether Dogman isn't really of an interest to you, which is also legitimate, there are some great graphic novels to explore. So I just mentioned the ones from Jerry Craft. We've got a full list you can check out another one that caught my eye, it's really fun, is they're taking some full-length novels and they are creating graphic novel versions of them. So when I was a middle grade reader, I loved the Redwall series by Brian Jacques, and I saw that they've done a Redwall graphic novel, which I'm looking forward to reading. Here at our house, we have a lot of copies of this series called Geronimo Stilton, which I think makes a really nice transition, or, you know, along the style of Dogman. Certainly more words, but broken up with lots of illustrations as well, and nice spaced text. And one more that I wanted to mention was this series that our kids have been very interested in. It's called Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales, and it's a little more dense than a Dogman graphic novel, but again, our kids have been working their way through them. We have a couple here right now. Big Bad Ironclad. So those are some really fun graphic novels. And I think, Jane, you had one to mention as well. I wanted to let you mention.
Yeah. So we've got like a slightly younger crowd than you guys do. So this is one that Fitz really likes right now. It's called Narwhal, Unicorn of the Sea, and it's a series, Narwhal and Jelly. So it's, I mean, for a younger audience, but it's a fun intro to graphic novels. And then my 4-year-old also really likes this one, The Great Pet Escape. It's more dense, but I mean, I think I've probably read this aloud to him 8 times over the last 6 months. He really loves it. And then one that I am interested to read, I mean, it's a kid's book, but it's called Rapunzel's Revenge. I haven't read it yet, but it's by Dean and Shannon Hale, and I love Shannon Hale. She writes the Princess in Black series, which is for a younger crowd, but in like the YA, more adult realm, The Goose Girl. If you guys haven't read that, that one's fantastic. And she's got tons of great books. But this is called Rapunzel's Revenge, and it's a graphic novel she wrote with her husband. And there's an illustrator as well. Let's look at who that is.
Glad you brought up. Oh, sorry, Chen.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just was gonna say, so graphic novels are, you know, getting more popular, and another benefit of them that people are seeing is that with struggling readers, these graphic novels are more intriguing to them because there's pictures and it kind of breaks up the big text for these kids. So as they're beginning, or if they're struggling, graphic novels have been a good segue for them to really enjoy reading. So another plus for graphic novels.
Yeah, absolutely. And the short of it is that there are tons of titles to enjoy after Dogman. So be sure to check out that list if your kid is interested or is a reluctant reader. They could be really helpful.
So Earth Day is coming up. It's another exciting event on the horizon. I actually haven't like super celebrated Earth Day in the past, but we're celebrating everything we can right now. So a couple books that we're excited about and we'll be reading for Earth Day over here. The cover for this one has been lost, but it's called Touch the Earth. And it's like, kind of like Touch the Tree. You interact with the book by like touching it and shaking it. And this is a really popular one at my house, Touch the Earth. And then this is a newer release called Clem and Crab by Fiona Lumbers. And it's a really cute story about a little girl who goes to the beach every weekend and kind of cleans up the beach looking for treasures. And this crab kind of hitches a ride home with her. And it's an opportunity for her to teach her classmates and also teach them about cleaning up and the importance of also returning things to their natural habitat. So the illustrations in this one are super cool.
I have The Boy Who Spoke to the Earth. This is one of my favorite books. It's by Chris Burkard, and he's a photographer. So I knew about him before I followed him on Instagram, but he came out with this children's book a few years ago, and the illustrations, I'm just going to get to a good page. They're all good, but the illustrations are phenomenal, and it's one of my favorites for Earth Day because it just celebrates the beauty in the earth. I'll just show you one more. And it's spot on with his photography too. It's just beautiful.
That's really pretty. Is it wordless?
No, there's words. I just chose those pages, but it's a little lighter on text. But it's a great one.
One we love at our house is called the Garbage Barge, and I don't have it here with me, but it's a one about recycling. So this garbage barge leaves Long Island. They just have way too much garbage, so they decide, let's ship it out of here. So they put it on a barge and they ask this captain to take it down to North Carolina, but these two old sisters are on the beach and they're like, what is that? You know, they call the police and they don't let them into the beach. And long story short, this barge travels like 6,000 miles a whole summer to try and get rid of this garbage. And so it's a cute story about, you know, trying not to throw away so much stuff and to recycle more. So pretty cute, great illustrations, really fun one.
Yeah, that one sounds fun.
One of the things I love about the Garbage Barge on the illustrations is it's illustrated by, I actually don't know the name of the individual, but he has an illustration shop called Red Nose Studio, and that's what's listed on the book. And there are quite a few books now that I've seen that he's done, and I follow him on Instagram because I was just so intrigued by his work. And so he creates these beautiful little handcrafted puppets, and he stages these sets. So the illustrations are sets on are photographs of these sets that he creates with these characters. And I noticed that it looks, I haven't looked into the details, but I think that maybe you can purchase some of the characters that he makes, or at least he gives them to people, because he does these cool little videos of packaging them up with these custom boxes that he has. And anyway, I really enjoy his work, and that one was very impactful. To your point, Jane, Earth Day is actually something that we have celebrated quite a bit, because when I was in graduate school, I had a band that I played with, and everyone else in the band was much better than I was. But the one time of the year that we got to perform was for the campus Earth Day celebration. So 2 years in a row, we played on Earth Day, and it was so Earth Day is a highlight. As Earth Day rolls around each year, the band sends around notes and updates each other. So shout out to Onyx Cave and Earth Day.
So are we going to get our own Earth Day performance for Book Brew from you, Chandler? I think that's what I just heard there.
Those days might be past, but on the topic of graduate school, that was the time when we were in Boston, and so I wanted to bring up this book for Earth Day that I saw is a new release, and it's called Lobster Garden: Speak Out Against Pollution with a Wicked Awesome Boston Accent. And I'll be honest, I don't have the best Boston accent, but this looks just very clever, very fun, very upfront about what the message is. There's no it's very didactic, I guess, in that regard, but just very fun, because the characters are these crustaceans, a lobster and a neighbor, and they have these great Boston accents with their dropped R's all over the place. So
Nice.
I'll have to look that one up.
I was just going to say, Chan, I was really glad you brought that up, because I didn't know if you wanted me to. So that's a fun memory. That's something I always think of too, is the band. And really, like, I'm not sure I knew that there was an Earth Day before the band performed on it. So lots of fun. Mother's Day and Father's Day are coming up. So there's also tons of great books about moms and dads. One I love is called Bunny Roo, I Love You. I wish I had it here with me. We have some of our books still boxed up, so from moving and stuff. Oh, yay! It's just so cute. It has the cutest little illustrations. Such a fun one. Good transition from bunnies to mothers. Easter to Mother's Day, so really cute one.
My current favorite mom book is called You Be Mommy, and I also couldn't find my copy. I'm gonna blame my kids. They like our books too much. But it's about a mom who invites her daughter to be the mommy and do the mommy roles because mommy's too tired to be mommy tonight. And the illustrations are so cute. I love the color palette. And it's just like a really sweet story about appreciating moms and all that they do.
I love that one too, Jane. I also love Like the Moon Loves the Sky. This is actually going to be part of our What We Bought. What month is it? April? I don't know.
Yeah.
what we bought edition. But I just love this one. It's stuck in my mind since I read it a while ago. And the illustrations are so vibrant. My son loves them. And it's just really thoughtful, and it's all about the word inshallah. And there's a great little author's note talking about what that means in Arabic and how it's part of the Muslim culture. And it's just really meaningful, thoughtful, I love you book, but more than an I love you book from a mom.
Yeah, that one's really gorgeous.
I really liked that one as well, and it reminds me, and reviewing that one, another one that we reviewed that has really stuck with me is called Just Like a Mama, and this is the story of a girl who's raised by not a biological mom, but that's why I think the woman's name is Rosie, and it talks about all the ways that Rosie is just like a mama to the girl. Is really touching and a fun option for other family structures around Mother's Day.
So I realize Father's Day is even a little bit farther on than Mother's Day, but while we're talking about moms and dads, I wanted to bring up one of our favorite dad books, which is Dad and the Dinosaur. Have you guys read this one? I would highly recommend it. It's a really cute book about father-son bonding. The dad and son, they're both named Nick, Big Nick and Little Nick. And Little Nick is not as brave as his dad, so he carries this little toy dinosaur around with him everywhere he goes. And if he doesn't have a pocket, he ties it to his shoestring or to his pants string, swimming. But then one day at soccer, he loses his dinosaur and is scared all the way home, sleeps with the lights on. And when his dad comes home from work, he susses out that something's not quite right with Little Nick, and they have this great father-son bonding moment where they go and look for the dinosaur together and give him a bath, and now Big Nick is in on, Little Nick having this dinosaur with him all the time.
Cute.
That's nice. If there are other, you can check out other books for Father's Day. We'll make sure we link to our full Father's Day list. I was pausing because I was trying to remember. I think it's called I'm blanking on the name, darn it. It's a book by Mac Barnett that came out last year. I should have had it ready to go. It's about a dad who comes in and, let's see, I'm almost there. Just Because is the name of the book. And so it's not a traditional Father's Day story, but I love it as a Father's Day book because a little girl has all kinds of questions about things that little kids ask about, and the answers are just terrific. It's very clever, very fun. So you can check it out. Check out Jane's recommendation, and we'll have links to all of that you can see more Father's Day and Mother's Day books through the link. So one more date that we're excited to celebrate in April it's a regional holiday. It's called Patriots Day. It's celebrated a lot, I think, on the East Coast in commemoration of the Battle of Lexington and the beginning of the Revolutionary War. In fact, we one year had the chance to go up before dawn to the green at Lexington and watch a reenactment of the skirmish between the British and the Americans, and it was a really fun day. So if you're interested in another, like Jane says, celebrate everything you can, this one is a fun one to adopt. And for Patriots Day, I mentioned these already, but the Nathan Hill's Hazardous Tales, there are two that are terrific Revolutionary War tales. There's this one, Lafayette, and there's another one that is One Dead Spy. Both are Revolutionary War tales. And we'll also have a link to some other titles, but Rescuing the Declaration of Independence just came out, and that's a really interesting picture book biography or picture book history about this clerk in DC who saves a bunch of important documents, and it's a story that I never heard about. And then there are a couple also that tell diverse stories of the Revolutionary War. A Spy Called James and Phoebe the Spy, which will also be on the list to check out and would make great reads for Patriots Day.
I'm just going to mention too, Magic Tree House is always a win in our book, and there's a Revolutionary War on Wednesday book, so our kids love that one.
So that takes us through sort of upcoming events that maybe would be helpful to check out lists of books for, though there is one more event in April that we wanted to highlight, and that's April 14th, School Librarians Day. And as I saw that was coming up, it just brought back a lot of memories to me of days in the library at my school and books that I discovered there. And I just remember that feeling of being in the library, of the anticipation of seeing the books on the shelf and wondering what I might discover next. And one book that really stuck with me is a less well-known, well, compared to Hatchet, most other books of Gary Paulson's are less well-known, I guess. But this one is, I haven't seen it talked about a whole lot, but it's called The Hay Meadow. And for me, I really enjoyed that story. I was very interested in Western lifestyle and horses. And this is the story of a boy who is tasked with spending the summer taking care of the family's sheep up in the mountains. And he has a bunch of unexpected challenges from nature, snakes and wolves. And then if I remember right, I meant to check this before we got on and I forgot, but I think that he even is a convict who has stolen some treasure, gets looped in. I hope I'm not misleading you with that, but I think that's part of the adventure. And it was a really fun story that I discovered in my school library, and thanks to my wonderful school librarian.
I had a great elementary school librarian too. Her name was Mrs. Elgren, and she did a fantastic job of doing fun events that have stuck with me still today. I remember doing a scavenger hunt to learn the Dewey Decimal System, and she did a donut morning where my dad took us before school and we had donuts and we read books in the library before school, which was so fun and it felt really special. And I also remember, I have a lot of memories from this, but she introduced me to extra Gail Carson Levine books after I read Ella Enchanted and loved that. She always knew the best thing to introduce after a book you read. And I even remember doing a storytelling competition in my school library that she hosted, and I think I was second runner-up, but lots of fun memories.
That is so great, Becca. How fun. When I was trying to think of my elementary school, for a second I was like, I can't remember where it was. But the cool thing about our library is, I mean, our elementary school was just, one level except for the library and computer lab. So it was kind of like a loft area. So you'd have to go upstairs and you could see down to the main level. And it just was kind of like a cozy little library, like libraries should be. And what the other thing that I thought was just perfect is that my school librarian's name was Mrs. Reed. And I just, as a little kid, was like, Mrs. Reed, and we're going to read books. So just lined up perfectly.
Can't have a better name than that as a librarian, Mrs. Reed. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So from our crew, thanks to wonderful school librarians, and happy School Librarian Day on the 14th. So in thinking of The Hay Meadow, which was a book that I read as a child and kind of forgot, I was curious what other members of the book crew if there are other titles like that you remember loving from your childhood but have kind of fallen off the radar as far as you can tell. Like, I haven't heard anyone talking about that book for a long time, and I think a couple of people might have are there other books like that you'd recommend to dig back out of the bottom of the library bin?
I don't know. Do any of you remember the Dear America diary books?
I think I did read a couple of those.
I read a few of those, and I remember being really intrigued by them. And those were the only diary books I really remember reading. And I don't remember how good they were, but
For me, the title that came to mind was Frindle. You guys read Frindle
yes.
by hang on.
Andrew Clements.
Yeah, it's about a boy who decides that he's going to call a pen a Frindle and tries, like what is a name kind of thing.
Yeah,
love
I just read Andrew Clements' latest book, so, and it kept, the reviews and stuff I was reading said I need to read Frindle, so I'm gonna have to go check that one out.
It's a really fun read aloud, and I think your boys would like it.
Good idea. Have to do that.
He was a master of capturing the elementary school experience in that environment.
Yeah.
The other one that came to mind for me was Bunnicula. I remember really enjoying that in probably second grade as a read aloud from my teacher. And I have a note. So Deborah and James Howell are the authors. And in my mind, it's like along the lines of a Beverly Cleary type story. And yeah, I just remember being very captivated by this story and haven't heard of the title in a long time. And that's one of the things that I love about our Discovery platform is just seeing titles resurface that I'm like, oh, wow. And I had that experience this past month, seeing what people were reading there. And it was with this book, and we'll have to show you the cover when we can, but because it just took me a minute to register, and then it was suddenly a blast from the past. It's called Horrible Harry in Room 2B, and I wish I had a copy because on the cover there's this, I mean, it's terrible, but there's this boy who has either like a little garden snake or a worm or something, and he's got another kid pinned up against a tree, and he's like terrorizing the child with his worm. And I just had completely forgotten about that and saw that cover, and it just came back to me. And so it's really fun on the platform. I love like discovering books that have hidden gems, like we call them, and seeing what other people are reading. And other things that came up on the platform recently that would be interesting to check out, the Capital Mysteries series. That looks like that's one of those where if you get into it, you can read for a long time. It looks like there's at least 14 titles in the series, and all about Capitol as in Washington, D.C. mysteries. So mysteries about the Smithsonian and other adventures in the Capitol, and Boxcar Children mysteries have been surfacing. So that was another influential book in my childhood. And I haven't read them again with my kids. I'm planning to, but I was reading someone else saying that they've aged well. So that's terrific and nice to be the case. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, there's a series called The Wildwood Chronicles, and it's on my to be read pile, but it's by this author and illustrator, Colin Malloy and Carson Ellis. And I love, this is a fun story as well, the Whiz Mob and the Grenadine Kid. But The Wildwood Chronicles is by the same author illustrator pair, and it's on my to be read pile. I love her illustration style, and I've read good things about the story as well. So with that, I think we are just about wrapping up, and we're to our segment about the books that we didn't send. So we have a few books to mention of what we won't be sending in our boxes.
So I have one to talk about for the chapter book box. It's from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. I don't actually know if you say Basil or Basil. My husband and I both say it differently. I say Basil. This one is a super Super great read. Oh, thanks, Chandler.
Mhm.
Really fun. There were just a few things in it that made it so we felt like we couldn't send it to our audience. But you can check out all of the details in the parents guide on the books page. But it had a few illustrations and then a few instances where it talked about maybe a candy bar that might have drugs in it, or a Renaissance room in the museum, just a few comments. But overall, this one is one that you just dive in and you don't want to stop reading.
So on the picture book box, one that I so wish we could send because we love it here so much, it's called Lionheart. And I meant to grab our copy, but now my kid is napping. Will is napping and he should have been up by now, but he's not. So, but anyway, we read this every night for at least 6 months to Fitz. He just picked it every night for 6 months. And it's one of the ones we took with us to the hospital to keep him entertained when he had that experience when he was 2, and he still loves it. It's still in his book sling by his bed. And it's about a little boy who has a stuffed lion, and, you know, it gets dropped, loses it in the forest, and then the lion comes back as like an actual lion, which reminds me of Aslan, to like help him face his fears. But the monster at the end of the book is on the scarier side. If children are sensitive to that, which is the reason we didn't feel like we could send it. But my kids aren't scared of it, but it is on the scarier looking side. But it's a really fantastic book. The illustrations are gorgeous.
Yeah, that is a beautiful one. We love that one as well, and agree that it's, you know, a parent should check it out beforehand. But if it won't be too much for a kid, it's an awesome picture book. I wanted to bring up first one word about that Becca said about this. This was one of my favorites from elementary school. So don't let what she mentioned, you know, shy you, keep you away from it. We just think it's one of those that would be best to make sure that you're reading it aloud together, or at least in a position to address the things that are noted in the parent guide. And so it's a terrific one. This one is the one that I wanted to mention. It's called Two Roads by Joseph Brujac. And he's written a lot of children's books, a lot of for this age and younger. And he is a I forgot to check. Anyways, a Native American author, and this story is a fantastic tale of a Creek Indian boy who doesn't realize that he is Native American, and his parents haven't told him, and till his mom passes away, and his dad and the boy it's set in Depression era America, and the dad is a World War I veteran, and they're living out what the book uses time, like era language, time period language. So they are hobos and they are living a hobo life, but I just loved it. It talks about how they call themselves the Knights of the Road, and they live by this code of ethics as hobos, and the ethics are very high. They're very respectful of people they're passing, as well as like watching out for one another of fellow travelers. And just it felt like this sort of Grapes of Wrath type middle grade story with this awesome twist this awesome culture of Native American culture. So lots of great exposure. There were a couple of things that we noted in the parents guide that you can check out on the platform that were a bit mature, but I think, or again, like some issues to maybe be aware of with the era language. But it was just enchanting. I thought it was so wide, eye-opening, and really enjoyed it.
Sounds like a great one.
So as we send you off, we just have a reading tip that we want to share with you.
Yeah, this was me, and give me 1 second. I just got a whole stack of books from my mom's house, and how we knew they were mine is like they're all inscribed from my grandparents, from my parents, from family friends. And it just reminded me of how precious these inscriptions are and how, I mean, I was building my library. My mom was helping me build a library as a child, but now I have these memories and it's part of kind of like my history to have these childhood books with me with these messages like every year from my grandparents and my parents. And it's a really special way to add value and meaning to your books that, I mean, it takes 20 seconds to write. Two Fits, love mom on your 4th birthday. You were really loving pirates this year. But now it's captured in a part of, you know, their family history kind of. So I'd recommend you inscribe books. And we have some fun printable book plates if you want to use those to do it with.
Yeah, I loved that suggestion, Jane, and we'll have those linked for you to check out. Jane did a whole article on the blog that you can check out for more details, but definitely something we want to start to incorporate here at our home. So with that, we will sign off. It's been great to be with you, and happy reading.